Welcome back to another episode of the Walk Foundations podcast. Today we have the College Football Playoff Series, and we are pleased to be joined by Clemson safety Caleb Nix. Welcome to the show, Caleb.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and the first thing I was just kind of thinking about, Caleb, was I said you're a safety, but you have not always been a safety. You made a bit of a transition, and you grew up in, is it Phoenix City, Alabama?
Phoenix City, correct.
I know the city, like the pronunciation, like do people, like I was thinking, is it Phoenix? Is it like Phoenix?
Yeah, so it's exactly like Arizona, just without the O.
Yeah, people were saying too that that's actually how it should have been originally spelled. I was reading into that a little bit.
I think so. Phoenix City's a great area. It's like T.J. Parker, Justin Ross. This is just Clemson speaking. E.J. Williams. So we've had like 3 or 4 just to Clemson. So it's a good high school.
That's great. That's great. And so you played quarterback in high school and growing up, you had your dad to lean on and being a quarterback as well, and your brother. And just what was it like growing up playing football in Alabama and kind of like the culture of football down there?
Yeah, so like you said, I had the option to play whatever sport I wanted, but from the beginning I always wanted to play quarterback. That's just kind of all I knew between my dad and my brother. And yeah, Alabama, football is like rooted in the culture. And so high school football means a lot. My dad was actually my head coach in high school, which was awesome. So every day, you're out there with him, and he was offense coordinator. So he's at, practice, he's yelling at you for this or that, he's coaching you. But those are some of the best memories I have. I wouldn't change it for the world. My true freshman year was Bo's senior year. So that was a year that we all 3 got to be together. And then Tez was a junior. So there was kind of all 4 of us out there every day, which was a ton of fun.
Okay, so you mentioned Tez, and Tez was not always your brother, and Tez came into the family. What was that experience like, welcoming a new brother into the fam?
Yeah, so it was 2018, the spring of 2018. I should know the exact dates. I don't. My mom and Tez and the rest of my family would probably know. It was sometime around March. We're just kind of getting ready for spring football, and my dad calls me into his office, and he's like, hey, just after school one day, he's like, hey, Tez is going to come home with us, spend a few nights, maybe a couple weeks. Like, we're really not sure. And I was just like, all right. I really didn't know Tez. I was still an 8th grader. He was in high school, so we hadn't had that many interactions. So we go home. He actually came home wearing an Oregon hoodie, which is crazy because of where he is now. He moved into my room. I had some bunk beds, so he was sleeping in the top bunk. And, he just never moved out and became one of us, became a true brother. He still is. I still talk to him all the time. And, it's honestly kind of one of those things that, like, now you look back on it, like, you don't really remember life without Tez. He's been, a part of our family for well over 6 years, 7 years now. He's a true brother. Yeah,
and so you talk about how, like, your dad, offered that up to Tez to bring him in through the situation that he was going through, and so you look at your parents and you look at the example that they set. What has it been like for you to, like, look up to your parents and the example that they set?
Well, my parents mean everything to me. From the very beginning, they've set such a strong foundation for my life and for my brothers and sisters' lives. We go to church every Sunday. We're listening to worship music all the time. Anytime you get in my dad's car, there was nothing else playing other than Christian music. They openly pray. They talk about it with us. And so that foundation just has held firm through, all of myself and my siblings' life. And it really means a lot because it, put us on the right path as a child, and we won't stray from it. It's really held true. And even them just opening their homes, that, like, Tez wasn't the first one that came and stayed a few nights with us. He's just the first one that never left. And so it just shows, like, the love of just, being flexible, being open, like, just showing the love of Jesus, being the hands and feet, and just opening up with loving arms.
Yeah, and so you get to see, your parents shining the light of Jesus Christ, like, in your home and in the example that they set. And when you were growing up, when did you kind of have your, what did your relationship with Jesus look like as a kid and finding your own faith?
Yeah, so like I said, I always knew Jesus because of just growing up in church, Sunday school and all that. But I accepted Jesus 7 years old, sitting in a parking lot with my dad and my family in the car. We were just talking about it, and my dad kind of walked me through the steps, walked me through what it meant, and I accepted Jesus. And then about a year later, I got baptized. Actually, my dad baptized me. We had my grandparents have a lake house, And so he baptized me with like my whole family there, my grandparents and some cousins and family, which was really, really cool. But I feel like my story is probably a lot like a lot of people that grew up in the church. It's you grow up and you have a relationship and you go to church and everything, but it's really until you like mature as an individual and as a human to understand like, all right, I need like a true relationship. This is my own, it's not my parents, which is really later high school, early college for me, when I started discovering that and just started walking my own journey, in a sense, and not so much my parents. Now they laid the foundation for me, but eventually you have to choose like to have your own relationship. So yeah, I would say that as I matured as as an individual, that my relationship with the Lord was the same. It matured. I learned that I got to take the steps myself. I got to spend intentional time. I can replicate what they did, but it has to be for me. It can't be just for them.
That's so good. That's so good. And you talked about like that intentional time with the Lord. What are some of your like daily practices, or what does your intentional time with the Lord look like?
So I try to read my Bible or devotion every morning. I will admit that's a hard thing for me sometimes. That being a college athlete, you wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes. And so at some point I try to get it in, even if it's between classes in the morning. And then I'm in a group message with both my brothers Tez and Bo, and then a few of other guys in our life that we're really close with, and we rotate sending devotions. So either you send it on your day, or if there's just something that the Lord is laid on your heart, you can send it in there. My dad every morning sends us I say us, he sends individually to some of his former players, like a scripture with a little motivation thing. And so that's kind of what it looks like. And then I try to listen to Christian music constantly throughout the day when I'm in the car, just to kind of recenter yourself, put your eyes on the Lord. Because you don't realize how many times, you're taking a 10-minute drive here, 10-minute drive there, and that adds up. And if you're, being conscious about that time and what you're thinking about and what you're listening to, what you're putting in your ears, that really makes a difference. So yeah, that's what my daily walk looks like.
Yeah, that's great. And so you're in high school. You're growing up, like you have that year with your dad and your brother both playing football together, and you go throughout high school. You're playing quarterback. And did you always have a desire to play in college? Did you want to play at the next level?
Yeah, I always wanted to play at college. To me, like that, football didn't end at high school. It just like high school was awesome, but it led into college. And so yeah, that was always my dream.
And so you're getting some offers, and then you also get an opportunity to go to Clemson. And what were some of the things that you were thinking about when it came to like choosing Clemson as your college?
There was multiple factors. First of all, I was kind of in that COVID when the transfer portal first opened recruiting class, which kind of hurt me in some of the smaller schools that had offered me, because then they're like, well, we'll just wait, see what the transfer portal holds. And then I had some offers from some other places, great schools, but just not places that I necessarily wanted to go, spend college. And then it's amazing how the Lord works. It was the summer before my senior year. I was talking to my parents, and we're like, what am I going to do? Like, I didn't really want to. I went to a big high school, and one of my things was I didn't want to go to, which there's nothing wrong with a smaller school, but I didn't want to go to a smaller school and kind of have this same playing similar stadiums. I wanted to. I'd seen Bo go to a big school. My dad was a college coach growing up, so like this was my dream: go and play in front of 80, 90,000 people, big games, top 25, top 10 matchups. And so I decided, if I'm going to walk on, like I want to go to Clemson. And then, how the Lord has it, I started dating a girl that summer through an FCA camp, who she was actually coming here to be a freshman. She's my fiance now, which is awesome. But so that definitely, as it came about, I would have probably been a little bit more hesitant to walk on, but I was like, I can go, be in the same college town as her. Her family's just down the road. Her dad's actually a pastor. So the Lord's worked it out. And then I was able to propose a little bit earlier than what I would have should I have went somewhere else. So that's awesome.
That's so awesome. And just as you were talking there, I was even thinking about, did you grow up an Auburn Tigers fan, the other Tigers?
I
what
did.
Was that like?
So I did grow up an Auburn fan, because I'm the first one in my family not to go to Auburn. My dad, mom, they met at Auburn. Older sister went to Auburn. Bo obviously went to Auburn. But I kind of just made the decision once Bo went that I wasn't as highly recruited, and I just didn't want to go and kind of live in his shadow. You're always going to, when you have a brother that's a great player, you're always going to be in his shadow. There's nothing you can really do about it. But, putting myself at a different school just kind of alleviates some of that and I can kind of make a name for myself. So that's kind of why I chose Clemson. Clemson's very similar to Auburn. A lot of people say Clemson is Auburn with the lake. And so that's probably a big reason why it was so high on my list. I know when Bo was taking recruiting trips and I was able to tag along to a few. I always loved Clemson and just the environment. They're very similar in the family, and faith is really driven into the athletics program and to the town itself. So that's kind of what drew me to Clemson.
Yeah, and it's very, very apparent just how big the faith component is here at Clemson, and it's a big deal. And was it really attractive to you to be able to go into a place that you could just be surrounded by some great community?
Absolutely. Clemson FCA, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, is huge on campus in the athletics itself individually. Coach Sweeney, is a very strong man of faith. Pretty much the whole staff is. So just coming to a place where you're going to be surrounded by great men who really prioritize their faith. We have a chaplain that works for FCA, but he's around our football program, and he's a great man. One of the wisest men that I've ever met, like just Bible speaking wise. So just being surrounded by all those men, and then just the town itself. There's churches. There's plenty of churches you can choose from. The majority of the student body. You can find people to go to church with. You go to church in Clemson, and there's going to be a lot of students there that you see, that you're in classes with, or that you interact with. So yeah, that was definitely a big reason that I wanted to come here.
How important is it as a follower of Jesus to surround yourself with fellow brothers and sisters in Christ to build you up in your faith?
Oh, I think it's extremely important. And that can even be people physically, in Clemson. And it can also be people that you've known for a long time. So, like I said, like that group message that I have, like those are some of the closest people that I have that we can talk with, we can call. So I tore my ACL this year, actually, in the second game of the year versus App State. And so my seasons looked a lot different than like what I had imagined it to be. And, you wish that, like, sometimes you wish that, when something happens like that, it's like the perfect story, like, right afterwards, I was in my Bible all the time, like the Lord really helped me, which he did help me through, but, you get super busy right after that. There's this added on, there's that. You're, after surgery, you're waiting on a ride. You're not dependent on yourself. So, there was a lot of struggle there for a while. But those guys, and then people on the team as well, just checking in on you. Like those are guys that really, helped me and like helped me stay the course, and till you can get kind of back on your feet, and then the Lord does show that, like, hey, like it's a lot bigger than football. It's a lot bigger than, you being self-dependent, being able to drive, whenever you want. You're sitting around waiting on a ride for 4 to 6 weeks is, what I kind of had to do. So it shows that, like, hey, everything can be taken away like that. So your relationship with me is what truly matters. And that's kind of what my season ended up looking like, which wasn't planned, but it really helped me, my perspective now, 3 months out of surgery, 3 months, removed from it, that I can see, like, the Lord's got a plan. And every once in a while he's got to, recenter you, even if it's something like that just shows, like, hey, keep your eyes on me. Like I'm the reason you're doing this.
Yeah, and you spoke about tearing that ACL, and you played through the rest of the game, and you just kind of figured something was wrong, but you just kind of kept going, and that was a big story. And I think that really just was a great showing of your perseverance, and also too just hearing like how your faith's probably been tested a lot through like the rehab of that, and going through missing time of being able to get out on the field. But you also talked about how the injury showed you that your career and playing isn't a firm foundation. And can you speak more on how putting your trust and putting your faith in Jesus and having him be your rock is where all the answers lie? Yeah,
football is it's a great sport. It brings together a lot of great people, and can teach you a lot of great lessons. But at the end of the day, it ends. Even for somebody who coaches for a long time, like it's going to end one day, and it's not fulfilling eternally. My mom's always said, football is what we do, it's not who we are. And so, yeah, football, it's going to let you down. It's going to be filled with disappointments. At the end of the day, there's only one team that wins the last game that's happy. Or there's teams that win a bowl game, but there's only one team that wins the last game that really wanted to win that national championship, and everybody else is going to be disappointed. And even, so I actually, tell a story. So I walked on to Clemson for a year and a half. I was a walk-on, and then this January, I was put on scholarship for the semester, which I was very thankful to Coach Sweeney. He calls me and tells me, and you're just kind of like, man, like this is what I've worked for. But then you hang up, and it's like a few minutes later, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I just got like the call of what I came here, like I was gonna, like I want to get that phone call or for Coach Swinney to tell me that I'm on scholarship, and then you realize like it's so unfulfilling. Like it's like, man, is that like all there is? And I was just sitting there in my room, and I remember thinking like, man, if I didn't have like a relationship with Jesus, like I would, like what would ever fulfill me? I mean, I just got my dream of, I walked on to Clemson, now I'm just put on scholarship for the semester, and like how thankful I am, like how awesome this is, but like, what does it really matter in the eternal look of life? Like there's nothing that can fulfill you other than Jesus. And so that was kind of a story that like will bring you to your knees. Like for me as an individual going through that like, man, like it really is Jesus.
That's so good, dude. I just as you were saying that, I was just like, it's kind of like this never-ending chase that you're just trying to fulfill in so many things, and it's something a lot of us struggle with. And even as followers of Christ, we look away so often from Him. And there's also just like a lot of people out there who, they don't know what, the idea of following Christ is just like a foreign, there's a blindness to it. And can you talk a little bit about your calling as a follower of Christ to be a light in this world, and actually like setting the example of following Him?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of people looking for that fulfillment that I just mentioned, that, they realize that they win the championship, they win this big award, and then they're, it's on to the next. It's like, all right, what can we do next? And they realize that that's not fulfilling. And some, like I was blessed to grow up in a household where I was taught what is the ultimate fulfillment. But, some people aren't. Some people aren't, shared the gospel all the time. And so there are, like we as followers of Christ are called to be the light. We're called to, walk out a life of faith and, live, pursue Jesus, live as close to like Jesus as we can, so that they can see us. We're the hands and feet of Jesus, and we should be, in the locker room or in the workforce, whatever you're doing, that you should be someone that they look to like, man, that person's different. Like, what do they have that I don't? So yeah, I think that's really like the calling of followers of Christ, is just to live in such a way that they can see that, like there's something in His life that's different. And then either they know you well enough that they know like, man, it's Christ, or they just watch Him from afar like, man, there's something in His life that's different. And then that, urges them to, find out what that is, and seek it out for themselves. So that's our calling as followers of Christ to me.
One time I had even seen somebody say that, how can we be, the Bible? Like, how can I be the Bible that somebody might not read? And I was like, man, that really like, that's a great way to put it.
There's a saying that I've heard that's like, I may be the only Jesus that someone ever sees. And it's like, when you think about that throughout your daily life, like, you don't know who's watching, especially as, athletes, like you have a bigger stage. When I put a Clemson football shirt on, or I'm walking around with my, Clemson football book bag, like people know like, oh, he's a football player. So you're already in a fishbowl, so to speak. And so, yeah, you could be the only Jesus anyone ever sees.
One thing I had noticed, Caleb, was you have a couple Bible verses in your Instagram bio. What do those verses mean to you?
Galatians 6:9, do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you'll reap a harvest if you do not give up. That was a Bible verse that actually, I was, I think it was going into my freshman year of high school, I was struggling through spring practice. It was actually the only time I ever considered moving from quarterback before I got to college. And I had already kind of decided, all right, this is going to be my Bible verse. And then my dad came in and was talking to me one night, and he was like, hey, like this Bible verse, like I think it should be your verse. And it was kind of crazy. It kind of hit us at the same time. But it just kind of shows that, it really comes, I think, from, following Bo in his footsteps. Like, not that he's, had it easy in any way, but, it happened, his recruiting happened younger than it did for me. He was a great player at a really young age, and it just happened a lot faster. And so for me, it's like, don't grow weary in doing good. And this is from the football aspect of it, keep working hard, keep, being the person you are, and in the right time, you'll reap a harvest of blessing. And like sometimes that harvest may look different than what you think it is. It's not all, flowers and roses all the time, but the Lord's gonna take you where, in the ultimate, at the end of the day, like where He needed you to be, where He wanted you to be. So that's what that verse means to me. The other one, 2 Timothy 1:7, I think. For the Lord did not give you a spirit of fear or timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. That really comes from just growing up. I was always an anxious kid. I moved around a lot growing up, and I was always the one, that at the new school I would be, I'd have to, leave class, go call one of my parents as a young age, third grade, whatever it was. I was just always anxious. Every beginning of the school year, anxious. Just any change, I was always really, really anxious. And so that verse has been with me for, it's kind of been one of my life verses for my whole life. Just that, the Lord didn't give you that spirit of fear, timidity, but power. Like He's in control. He's got power over the whole situation. He's already walked through the situation for you. So there's nothing to be, afraid of. And then a sound mind that, there's nothing to be anxious about. Just live in peace. He's got it under control, and just trust in Him.
Yeah, and earlier, Caleb, you mentioned that you're engaged, and I was just thinking, like, it'd be cool to hear your perspective on, what is your perspective on marriage?
My perspective on marriage is really two people coming together to, join their life together, and in the end, to be a greater good for the glory of God. It's kind of marriage is kind of a replication of the church. And so, as I'm engaged to Reagan, my fiance, and it's really both of us, chasing. The best graphic I've ever seen is a triangle, and it's like the Lord's at the top of the triangle, and if you run towards each other at the bottom, like it's never going to fulfill. But when you run towards that point of the triangle and you're both running towards Jesus, that you're getting closer and closer together, without even realizing it, because you're both chasing Jesus, you're both chasing the same thing. So that's something we've actually talked about, like how can we both chase Jesus in a way that's going to bring us closer together. But yeah, marriage is just a way for us to be an example to the world and show Jesus' light, and show His church even more.
I love that. And so you are a redshirt sophomore, correct? Redshirt sophomore, and so you're in your third year at Clemson right now. So you've had some time in the program and inside the facility. Can you take me inside a little bit of how the coaches and your fellow teammates bring Christ into the locker room?
Well, like I said, it starts from the top. Coach Sweeney is an awesome, leader of faith, by faith. Everybody that comes to Clemson, they're going to hear the gospel at some point. Which is awesome. It kind of makes not every school can say that. So there's not, some guys have almost an added pressure than I do that are followers of Christ in the locker room, because they're the ones that are going to go share the gospel verbally, and they but our guys are going to hear it. And then they're going to hear it from their coaches, because we have a great coaching staff. Like our coaches are going to share their devotions that they're reading. Our coaches, have a devotion like a voluntary Bible study, and the players are aware of that. You hear about it. We have a team Bible study with our chaplain. And so there's ways that you can, plug in the facility, and, all you have to do is be a willing listener, and you're going to be, fed the gospel, and you're going to be shared, the gospel is going to be shared with you. But also then as players, we have some great players. It's not just me, it's great teammates that, are strong in their faith, and just do a great job of, setting that example in the locker room, and then, outside the locker room, we have some teammates that the guys are going to know, you're not going to be the guy that's partying or cussing or, hanging around with, different girls that you shouldn't be, hanging out with, and they know that, and that's kind of just a way that, as us players, we can share. And then, and because of that, guys notice there's something different, and, you'll have teammates come up and be like, hey, just ask you about church, or where do you go to church, or, and you can tell that they just want to hear a little bit more, and some guys don't even know really the questions asked. They just want to hear you, you talk about it. But yeah, the staff does a great job of feeding it from the top, which is awesome.
What do your prayers look like before games?
That's a good question. I've never been one to pray for, winning or anything like that. I just pray really for the Lord to give me confidence in what I'm doing, give me confidence in myself, and just know that, the Lord's brought me here for a reason. I pray that the Lord will just help me know that I belong, and then just give me the opportunity to share to somebody, even if it's just one person in the stands, even if it's just one person on the team or on the sideline. Just give me the opportunity at some point to show something that points them towards Jesus. So yeah, that's my prayers before the game.
I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but you talked about how when you were younger, you moved around a lot, and you said that there was some struggles that came with that. Can you speak more into what it was like moving around with your dad, with the coaching changes, and just as a kid having to go through that?
Yeah, so I moved around. I think Clemson's the 9th place I've lived, and the real I think where some of my struggles came in was moving in the middle of the school year. So it's February and you're moving schools, and so you don't know anybody. But that's really the reason my family's so close. I firmly believe, because you move around like that, you never know like how long you're going to live in a place. You're starting fresh all the time. You don't really have any friends, so it's always just your family, like your brothers and sisters. They're the only ones that are always there. So like we really are like best friends now. We're super tight family. But yeah, like just starting school, and you walk in the lunchroom, you don't know who to sit by, you don't know anybody's name, so you don't know where to go, you don't know where your next class is. Like all of that was just like can just be anxiety filled. But in the end, it's really like on the outside of things, looking back, it's shown like how tight my family is because of that. Like I know a lot of people have bigger families that they're not really as tight. They don't really talk to their siblings as much, which every family is different. But I'm thankful that because of moving around, because of we had to just like lean on each other, really become a tight knit group, that we're so close now.
Can you think of any like life mantras or like lessons that you feel like your parents or even your siblings kind of have helped like instill in you? And or I guess that's kind of my question. Yeah.
As far as mantras, I think I mentioned it earlier. Like my mom's always said, football is what we do. It's not who we are, which is a great just reminder, because sometimes we can make life about football, and we have to remember like that's just what God's called us to do in order to point people towards Him. But that's not who we are. Take football away, we're still a follower of Christ. We still have our identity in Christ. That'd really be the main like mantra. But I've learned so many lessons from my dad over the years. From he's a coach, so how he puts his faith above football, how he shares to his staff and his players, because like I said, he's the head coach. So he's always had at least once a week had like a team like culture time where he'll lead, he'll pick a story at the beginning of the year, and he'll lead the team through it every week, and through the Bible. And so it's really cool that he's kind of instilled that in us.
Was your grandfather a coach too?
He was a longtime coach between Alabama and Georgia in high school, majority in Georgia. Long time, really successful, great coach. So yeah.
Do you think coaching is in your future, Caleb?
Definitely could be. I want to work in the NFL first, on like the front office is my goal. Scouting, stuff like that, which is very similar to coaching, just in a kind of a different world. But I can see eventually getting back into coaching. Yeah, it's gonna be hard not to.
And so I was just thinking more about Clemson, and one of the big things at Clemson is the hill. What was it like running down the hill for the first time?
It's crazy. The first time I did it, it was actually kind of rainy. And so some of the older guys were like, hey, be careful like on the mat. And so then they're like freaking you out, because you're like, oh, you can't be that guy that falls. I'll be all over Twitter and all over, ESPN, all that. And so the first time, honestly, as much as you want to take it in, I was like more scared to like just do everything right. And it was just kind of a blur. Like I really hardly remember the first time, just because it happened so fast. But next week, the first night game was like, when you come out like through the gate, and it's, the stadium's filled and the lights are going, and it's really like an exhilarating, 25, 30 seconds, however long it takes, and you're running down and you hear everybody yelling, and they're doing the CLEMSON chant, and it's just really like, it gives me chills every time. Like obviously, I've only got to run down the hill one time this year, but now I watch from the the field point of view, but it's like you still can feel like, you get those chills, and you just, like the exhilarating feeling that it is. It's an awesome experience.
Yeah, and so you guys just you guys just won the ACC championship, and you guys are heading to the college football playoff. How excited are you guys about that opportunity?
We're really excited. It was 2 weeks ago. It was kind of a crazy week, and we lost a really close game, devastating game to South Carolina. And that locker room is just like devastated. It's like, man, we had like we had the opportunities. We should have won. Like it was kind of that feeling that you feel right after the locker room and after a loss, and then we go home, and we're just all sitting around, and then SMU starts coming back, and the first time I checked my phone, it was 21-0 Miami over SMU. So it's like, man, like that's our last chance, or not SMU over Syracuse. So it's like, man, that's kind of our last chance. And you go home and you start like turning on the games, and next thing I know, it's like they start coming back, and one of my old high school teammates actually plays for Syracuse, so he had a few big catches, and I was like, just like starting to get into the game, and then I'm like, man, I'm gonna be like devastated again, like. I'm going to get into another game really hard, and then like they're going to somehow lose it at the end. I'm just going to be devastated, and somehow Syracuse pulled it out. And it was almost like just like new life. Like Cade, our quarterback, said, it was like you're playing outside and your parents call you in, and then you think you have to come in for the day, and you're devastated, and then they're like, okay, you can have 5 more minutes. And it's like, all right, well, that's going to be the best 5 minutes of the day just because you didn't think you were going to have it. And so that was kind of the feel. Like you get there, Monday and everybody's like rejuvenated. It's like, man, guys, we got a chance. Like, and then the game last week was crazy. We played really good at the beginning, and then it came down to the last second, and we just the door opened and we walked through it, and now we're in the playoff, which is awesome. It's gonna be an awesome experience.
What's it like having Cade Klubnik as the leader of your football team?
Well, Cade's an awesome guy. I actually live with Cade, and so I get to see him kind of in an everyday outside of football. And he really is like Christ-centered. His faith drives him, and that's why he plays football, is just to point others towards Christ. And he does a great job in every interview, every time people talk to him, that he's gonna mention that. And he's a great leader. He's a winner. He's won all the way back to his high school days. He's just a great guy. He's a great teammate to have, and it's really awesome to see somebody like that on that level. As a starting quarterback, you leading team into the playoff, and you're pointing people towards Jesus, and that's your goal.
All right, I got a couple more questions for you here. One question I always like to ask everybody is, what are some of Caleb Nix's hobbies? What do you like to do off the field?
I don't have any like specific things. I love spending time with my family. That's probably the number one thing. Like if I could, just have a weekend to go wherever. Like I don't even care if we just go, back home. I hang out with my fiance a lot. We try to go out on the lake, just because we do have, access to the lake right here. Love going on hikes, like just like finding, where we live in a beautiful place, upstate South Carolina. There's beautiful trails and mountains and rivers. Last summer we went on a hike and we found this beautiful waterfall, and it's like that's fun. And then just hanging out, with family would be my number one hobby. I've gotten to golfing a little bit recently. Not overly good. I got a lot better this summer, which was good. I needed it. Those are kind of my hobbies. Nothing really set, nothing huge, but that.
If somebody's watching this podcast right now, and they're just kind of wondering what a next step would look like in a relationship with Christ, or they don't really know where to start, what encouragement would you give them?
I would say talk to someone, whether it's a local pastor, whether it's an old teammate, a coach, your older brother, like whoever it is that like they can help, guide you, kind of help you, like mentor you. I think that's such a huge step that so many people miss out on, is like the mentorship process. And sometimes like it's not just gonna fall in your lap. You got to go out and you got to like ask somebody, and you may not even know them that great, but people that love the Lord and are living for the Lord, like they're not going to say no to you if you're coming up and asking questions and you just want to be, kind of discipled. And so that's the number one thing, is just, find someone that you can do life with, find someone that you can talk to, find someone that can kind of, keep you on the right track and help you. And then you can do the same for them. That's what I would say, is just find someone that you can talk to, and, find someone that you can start a reading plan with. They can keep you accountable. And so that's the first step that I would say is the most important.
That's great, Caleb. Well, I just want to thank you for your time, for joining us on the Walk Podcast and our College Football Playoff Series. It's been such a pleasure having you on, and I wish you best of luck the rest of the playoffs.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's an awesome podcast.